All right, it's a new week number 3. So now perfection, our perfectionist demon, he is coming back full force as we were working on Frankenstein, really working on perfecting, digging deeper into our emotions, going into those stories, those experiences, those lessons, those thoughts, everything that kind of makes us special and unique. He was stepping forward. He was being created. He was being built. But he was being built by imperfect pieces, and that is what made him more unique, more strong, more powerful, more alive. While our perfectionist demon was just sitting in the background, just sulking, just angry, and you could feel that energy. So as you were sculpting and developing this Frankenstein, your personal Frankenstein character, going after, and thinking and working through and looking back at your life and who you are as a person, as a human, as a creative, as a soul, I hope that you guys felt the freedom in that. And that while this guy was sitting in the background, a perfectionist demon, you could also feel that energy coming off of him, of just the disdain, the the feeling of not of just wanting everything to be perfect and just hating it all. So now this week in week 3, our perfectionist demon has taken his step forward. He's come forward and he wants to get us back in line, saying, you know what, there's too much off. There's too much of this unevenness, of this roughness, of these scars, these imperfections that I need to take charge, and I need to make sure that everything goes and gets put in its proper place, make sure that everything has a smooth edge, and I want to strip all the imperfections out of this. So as we were creating him, what I did was, I was really working and focusing in on that symmetry. But when I did that, you'll notice that you're going from one side to another, trying to make it perfect. And I'll add a little bit of clay to this side. But then this side starts looking a little bit off. So I add a little bit to this side, but then this side I need to take a little bit off here. But then this ear doesn't match. But then this ear's a little bit off and I have to shrink it or move it. And what you notice is you're just bouncing around, and that's what he has you do. So whereas analysis paralysis had you stalled in that thinking, that planning, I can fix it, I can fix it, I can fix it, we took action with Mr. Hyde. And now that we're in motion, he tries to come back and he takes off right where analysis paralysis left off and says, okay, now that you're moving, I want you to fix this, fix this, fix this, fix this, and continue to fix. You have to be able to understand him, and that's what we did this week. Is we learned our best to understand our perfection demon, to say, I understand that you want us to work on our skills, work on getting better, and not settling for just the mundane, just for basically getting it, sketched out. You do want to see us bring a piece of art or whatever we're doing from a sketch to a block in, to a refinement, to a final detail, to a finished piece. You don't want us to just give up on the sketch and leave it there and never do anything with it. You don't want us to have a whole bunch of unfinished pieces on the rack. But at the same time, you don't know when to stop. Perfection doesn't know when to stop. He wants you to keep refining until it is perfect. So until you smooth out every single part to where you lose the humanity in it, you lose the craft, you lose the character, because there's going to be imperfections in any kind of sculpture or art that you make. So what I mean by that is, let's say you're doing a portrait and it's you want to give it life, like I did with this Frankenstein. He has that slightly tilted shoulder, his head's tilted sideways. Well, the sides aren't exactly the same, and there's going to be different muscle groups working now. So perfection is like, no, that's not straight, that's not straight, that's not straight. We need to straighten him out. No, his head needs to be cocked up. and you get into that robot stance of an A-frame for, those of you who know doing character design, of just a straight A stance of, a soldier. And it just loses something. You smooth out all the emotion, all the character from them to just do a plain face and shoulders, a plain bust, looking straight at the camera. And then all of these scars, all of these imperfections, all these different forms, you smooth them out and you lose the character in the face. But then, also you have all of these textures, all of these, marks from the tool marks, from your fingerprints. And he wants you to remove those too. And that just steals the humanity, steals the craft, the uniqueness of it. And so what we had to learn this week is not only to harness his power, because he does have a power and he does push us to go beyond what we think we can do. However, we also have to learn when we need to make that decision and take that stand and say, this is how far I'm going to go. This is how far I'm going to take the piece. And I'm going to call it finished at one point. And when I call it finished, it's done. So what I wanted to do with this character is adding in the base to where it's still going to get smoothed out, but it has some strong edges. But I thought, wouldn't it be fun to add a little playful crack on this side? Just enough to add that own little unique quality to the base, but also to make a stand to say, I appreciate you and I'm using you. However, I am the one that's going to make the decision of when this is finished or what I want to add, how many imperfections. And then next week, Frankenstein's going to come back. He's going to come back full charge, and we're going to learn even more about ourselves, even more about our stories, even more about those pieces that when they all come together, they make us unique, they make us special. So I hope you guys have enjoyed this week. I hope that you guys have dug in a little bit deeper to understand your perfection demon and exactly who he is, what he does for you, where he actually shows up in your own personal life. So, like for me, it is that finding that symmetry and that smoothness. And again, he also takes place in, my scheduling and figuring things out, whereas my analysis paralysis does a lot of that before I get started. But now that I've started, he takes over, and now he is trying to work on it and making it perfect instead of just letting it flow and learn from the mistakes. So that is where we are right now. I hope you guys have enjoyed this. Hope you guys are also working on your Frankenstein just a little bit. But again, next week is when we're really going to bring him to life. We dug in a lot last week and into some of those personal experiences. And next week, we're going to dive even deeper and see exactly who he is, what makes you unique, and where you really let your uniqueness get expressed. There's going to be certain areas to where you're a little bit more in line, you're a little bit more baseline, but then you really expand and explode in these areas that you really enjoy, that you really like, and you really dive into things. So for me, exercise, art, exercising, creativity, health, and mindset is where my strongest capabilities are. A lot of the other areas, of life are not as strong. So therefore I don't get pulled. Those just I don't try to step outside the box. I don't even step into a lot of those other areas of trying to do stuff. This is where I found my focus. This is where I explode. And so I don't try to focus on my weaknesses or try to improve weaknesses on outside things that don't really interest me. I focus on my strengths and getting them that much better. And if there are certain weaknesses within this category or that category that are my passions, then I work on them so that I can get stronger, but I focus on my strengths and my passions. So next week, we're going to keep going with this. So hopefully you guys have enjoyed this, and I will see you guys next week.